So we're continuing to think about what is prayer. And the second part of my answer is that prayer is hard to do. I know that, and I know you know that, probably from quite frustrating and bitter experience. But I think that's something we also need to admit to one another. We often tend to think that, well, other Christians must have this completely sorted, and it must just be me that struggles in this way. But that's not the case. In fact, I was reminded of something that happened to me not too long ago. It was a fairly normal Tuesday, and I sat down at my desk to pray before I began my work. But I was struggling to focus and could barely string a sentence together. Talking to God that day just seemed impossibly difficult. It was all the more frustrating because that morning I'd already been out to the co-op, and on the way I'd met someone, and we'd talked about various topics, and I'd spoken in sentences, and I got into the co-op and bought some milk and quite happily conversed with the lady at the till. But by the time I managed to sit down at my desk, I seemed unable really to string a sentence together at all. It was immensely frustrating. I tried various things. I started to try to give God thanks for some of the blessings in my life. I didn't seem to stimulate my heart at all. I tried to pray the Lord's Prayer, thinking each line things that I could include in that. I didn't get far with that either. After a frustrating and embarrassingly short time, I was distracted. I tried other things, most of which didn't get me very far. In the end, I turned to a book of prayers and fittingly found one called In Need of Grace. Well, I don't think that would be an unusual experience for you. I know it's not an unusual experience for me. The reason that particular Tuesday sticks in my mind is that when I did then get on to my work, the very first task on the list was write a talk on prayer. Well, you can imagine how ridiculous that felt. And so really since then, I've tried to resolve that whenever I'm talking to another Christian about prayer, I'm always trying to admit my weakness and the difficulty of prayer along with the blessing of it. And what's interesting is that when I have done that, what's become very obvious is that I'm not the only one that struggles. We all do, and quite frequently. None of us actually has a prayer life that we're happy with. And we face struggles in various ways. Even the most sweet and glorious of prayer times seems to fade quickly. And we all seem to have this nagging suspicion that we really are just scratching the surface in terms of our prayer lives. So what can be done about it? Well, this is normally the time when people start to talk about tips and tricks in terms of praying. Things like if you want to stop your eyes drooping when you're praying, suspend yourself over a shark tank. Or, if you're trying to fill 10 minutes with prayer, why not speak very slowly? Well, I don't think anyone ever has actually said these things to me as serious suggestions, but to be honest, when you consider some of the things that people do suggest, they're about as good use as that. What we really need, I think, is a different approach. And that different approach is not to concentrate on tips and tricks, but to try something else. The famous Christian thinker John Calvin said that prayer is the chief exercise of faith. Or as someone simplified that, prayer is how faith sounds. And if that is true, then a tips and tricks approach really won't help us that much. To concentrate only on tips and tricks is really to be like a trainee chef who goes off to college and spends many hours mastering the techniques of cooking, but forgets to eat. What we need to do is to stimulate faith. And we do that by looking to the object of our faith, Jesus. And that's what we're going to do in our next video. But maybe before you watch that, why not pray first? Admit to God your weakness. Remember, God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. Ask for forgiveness for when your times of difficulty in prayer have been absolutely to do with your own sinfulness. And finally, ask God for a cleansing of your heart and a renewing of your heart, that you might know a deeper intimacy with Him in prayer.